I'd been silent for 2 years, swallowing every insult, every slight, until that night, when he raised his hand against me right in front of my children. The slap echoed through the living room, sharp and final. What he didn't realize was that my 10-year-old daughter had already pressed record on her phone. Following the safety protocols her school had taught her, that single moment of violence, captured in crystal-clear video, would become the key to reclaiming everything they'd taken from us. They thought I was weak because I needed help after my divorce. They forgot that in America, digital evidence can flip the entire game. My name is Lauren Hale, and at 35, I never imagined I'd be starting over from my childhood bedroom. But life has a way of humbling you. Divorce papers, 12-hour emergency shifts at Silver Meadow Children's Hospital, and 2 10-year-olds who needed stability more than I needed my pride. Noah and Lily, my twins, had handled the divorce better than I'd expected. They were resilient kids. Noah with his quiet sketches and asthma inhaler always within reach. Lily with her trumpet practice and fierce protectiveness over her brother. When I told them we'd be staying with Grandma Judith for a while, they'd simply nodded and started packing. "It's temporary," my mother had assured me, standing in the doorway of her Haven Ridge home while my stepfather Gerald watched from his recliner. Family helps family. That was 18 months ago. Temporary had stretched into something else entirely, especially after my younger brother Connor moved back to town with his wife Paige and their toddler, Mason. The shift happened gradually, like watching ice form on a windshield. First, it was the little things. Mason's drawings plastered over every inch of the refrigerator while Noah's artwork got stacked in a drawer. "We need the space for Mason's preschool schedule," Paige had explained, not meeting my eyes. Then came the redistribution of resources. The good parking spot became Connor's. The main bathroom schedule revolved around Mason's routines. Sunday dinners transformed into celebrations of Mason's every milestone. First word, first step, first everything. While my kids' straight-A report cards merited barely a glance. "You understand, don't you, Lauren?" my mother would say. "Connor and Paige are building their life. You're already established in your career." Established. That's what she called working 4 12-hour shifts a week, picking up overtime to save for our own place while paying off medical debt from the divorce. Established meant coming home to find my kids doing homework at the kitchen table because the living room had been converted into Mason's play area. Gerald was worse. He'd never particularly warmed to me, even less so when I'd moved back. But with Connor home, he'd found his golden child. Or rather, his golden grandchild. Mason could do no wrong. Mason needed the bigger room. Mason needed quiet during his naps, which somehow always coincided with Lily's trumpet practice time. "Can't you keep them quieter?" he'd bark at me after a long shift. "Some of us are trying to watch the game." The financial inequity was staggering. While I paid my mother $800 a month for our temporary stay, Connor lived rent-free because he's saving for a house. While I budgeted every grocery trip down to the penny, Paige's organic, gluten-free shopping lists were subsidized by my parents. While my kids wore hand-me-downs and thrift store finds, Mason sported designer toddler clothes that would be outgrown in weeks. I documented everything in my phone's notes app, not out of spite but out of habit, the same way I charted patient symptoms at work. The pattern was clear: 2 classes of citizenship in the Hale-Whitman household. But I kept quiet. Every time Gerald made a snide comment about freeloaders while looking directly at me, I bit my tongue. Every time my mother suggested my kids could be more helpful with Mason, I smiled and agreed. Every time Connor and Paige acted like we were intruders in what had been our refuge, I focused on my goal: save enough for first month, last month, and security deposit on our own place. The breaking point was creeping closer, though I didn't see it yet. I was too busy juggling shift schedules, school pickups, and the constant mental math of survival. Too focused on keeping my children from internalizing the message this house broadcasted daily, that they mattered less, deserved less, were less. They weren't less, they were everything, and soon, very soon, I would prove it. The announcement came on a Tuesday evening while I was reviewing patient charts at the kitchen table. Connor walked in with his trademark confidence, Paige trailing behind with Mason on her hip. "So, we've got some news," Connor began, not bothering with pleasantries. "Our contractor's starting the renovation next week. Full gut job on the kitchen and master bath. We'll need to stay here for about 6 to 8 weeks. I looked up from my laptop. "Stay here, all of you?" "Mom already said yes," he replied, as if that settled everything. "We'll take the guest room." The guest room. The same guest room where Noah and Lily had been sleeping, their belongings carefully arranged in the limited space we'd been allocated. "That's where my kids—" "Oh, we already figured that out," Paige interrupted, shifting Mason to her other hip. "There's the basement storage room. It's perfect for them. Lots of space to spread out." Storage room. She meant the unfinished corner of the basement with the concrete floor and single window that barely met egress requirements. The room that smelled of mildew after every rain. "That's not a bedroom," I said carefully. "It doesn't have proper heating. Noah has asthma." Gerald's voice boomed from the living room. "Kids are tougher than you think. Connor and I finished that space years ago. It's perfectly fine." By finished, he meant they'd thrown up some drywall and called it a day. No insulation, no proper ventilation, a window that had been painted shut since the Clinton administration. But arguing was pointless. By the time I got home from my next shift, the move had been completed. My children's belongings were piled in the basement corner like discarded inventory. Their beds, twin frames I'd bought myself, were shoved against the damp wall. The dehumidifier I'd purchased was running constantly, its death rattle echoing through the space. "Mom, it's okay," Lily had said, trying to be brave. "It's like camping." Noah was already wheezing slightly, clutching his inhaler. The next weeks were a masterclass in systematic dehumanization, every accommodation bent toward Connor's family. The kitchen schedule revolved around Mason's meals. The TV remote belonged to whoever was watching Mason's shows. The thermostat was set for Mason's comfort, leaving the basement arctic. I started documenting everything with my phone. The temperature readings from the basement, 52 degrees on cold nights. The photos of black mold creeping along the window frame. The videos of water seeping through the foundation after rain. "You're being dramatic," my mother said when I showed her. "Connor's paying for professional waterproofing after his renovation. It'll benefit everyone." "Mom, Noah had an asthma attack last night. The humidity down there." "Then maybe you should find your own place if ours isn't good enough." Gerald interjected, not looking up from his newspaper. The microaggressions escalated. Noah's drawings were removed from the refrigerator entirely. Mason might grab them. Lily was told her trumpet practicing was inconsiderate during Mason's waking hours, which seemed to be 23 hours a day. Their bathroom time was limited because Mason needs baths. One evening, I came home to find my kids' bikes moved to the rain-soaked side yard. We needed the garage space for Mason's ride-on toys. Paige explained, not a hint of apology in her voice. The breaking point came when I overheard Connor talking to Gerald. "Once we're back in our place, maybe Lauren will finally get the hint. I mean, how long can she use the divorce as an excuse?" Excuse, as if working myself to exhaustion while ensuring my children stayed fed, clothed, and sane was some kind of manipulation tactic. That night, I opened my laptop and started searching for rentals. Maple Row had a unit available, 12B, a modest 2-bedroom, but it had windows that opened, heat that worked, and no one there would treat my children like unwanted guests. I'd already started the application when Gerald appeared in the doorway of the basement. "Your boy's wheezing again," he said flatly. "Can't you do something about that? The sound carries up through the vents." I looked at him, really looked at him. This man who had never once shown genuine concern for my children's well-being, annoyed by the sound of a child struggling to breathe. "I am doing something about it," I replied, turning back to my rental application. "Trust me." The next 3 weeks became an exercise in strategic invisibility. I picked up every overtime shift available. sometimes working 16-hour stretches when they needed coverage. The exhaustion was worth it. Each paycheck brought me closer to the $3,600 I needed for Maple Row 12B. "You're never home anymore," my mother observed one morning, though it sounded more like relief than concern. "Bills don't pay themselves," I responded, pouring coffee into my travel mug while Noah used his inhaler at the kitchen table. The basement dampness had made his morning wheezing routine. My colleague Dana Ortiz had become my lifeline during this time. We'd worked together for 5 years, and she'd watched my situation deteriorate with growing concern. "You know, you and the kids can crash at my place anytime," she offered during a brief break between patients. "I've got that pull-out couch, and my guest room's just sitting empty." "Thanks, Dana. I might take you up on that soon." She studied my face. "Lauren, you're planning something." "I'm planning to give my kids a home where they can breathe. Literally." The apartment application was approved within a week. The landlord, impressed by my stable employment history and desperate for good tenants, even offered to let me move in 10 days early if I paid a partial month's rent. I accepted immediately but told no one. Instead, I became a ghost in my mother's house, working my shifts, saving every penny, and mentally cataloging what we'd take when we left. Not much, just our clothes, the kids' school supplies, their bikes if I could manage it, and our important documents. The psychological toll on my children was becoming evident. Noah had started apologizing constantly, for coughing, for needing his inhaler, for existing in spaces where Mason might want to play. Lily had stopped practicing trumpet altogether, claiming she'd lost interest, though I'd seen her fingering the valve silently in the basement, practicing without sound. "Am I being petty?" I asked myself one night, sitting in my car after a particularly brutal shift. 3 trauma cases, 2 of them children, and I'd come home to find my kids' laundry dumped on the basement floor because Paige needed the machines for Mason's clothes. No, I decided, this wasn't about petty jealousy over attention or resources. This was about basic dignity and safety. The distinction between jealousy and boundaries had become crystal clear. Jealousy was wanting what Mason had. Boundaries were demanding my children have safe, warm beds and the right to exist without constant apology. The group text that night pushed me past my limit. "Connor, family meeting tomorrow 6 p.m. Important house rules to discuss." My stomach clenched. I knew what this meant. More restrictions. More accommodations for Mason. More erasure of my children's presence. I texted Dana. "Might need that couch sooner than expected." Her response was immediate. "Anytime. Mean it." The meeting was exactly what I'd expected. Gerald led it like a corporate board meeting, Connor and Paige flanking him while my mother nodded along to everything. "Going forward," Gerald announced, "we need better organization. The basement area needs to be kept clear for storage access. No bikes, sports equipment, or toys blocking the pathway." "Where should the kids put their things?" I asked. "There's space under their beds," Paige suggested helpfully. "Kids don't need much anyway." "Additionally," Gerald continued, "quiet hours are now from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. for Mason's nap, and again from 7 p.m. onward for his bedtime routine. My kids do homework at 7 p.m. I pointed out. "They can use the library," Connor said dismissively. "It's open until 9. The library. They wanted me to load my children into the car every evening and drive to the public library so Mason could have perfect silence in a house with 5 other people. "Anything else?" I asked, my voice deceptively calm. "The kitchen schedule," my mother added. "Dinner is at 5:30 sharp now. To accommodate Mason's routine, if you're not home from work, the kids can eat sandwiches in the basement." In the basement, like prisoners. That night, I sat with Noah and Lily on Noah's bed, the dehumidifier rattling in the corner. "I need you both to know something," I said quietly. "This situation, it's temporary. I promise you, we're getting out of here soon." "When?" Lily asked, her tough facade cracking slightly. "Soon, but I need you to trust me and keep this between us. Can you do that?" They nodded solemnly, and I pulled them close, feeling Noah's slight wheeze against my chest. 3 more days. I just had to make it 3 more days until the apartment was ready. We could survive 3 more days. I should have known it wouldn't be that simple. The confrontation came on a Thursday evening. I'd just finished a 12-hour shift, during which I'd received a stream of texts from my kids that made my blood run cold. Lily: Mom, they moved our beds against the wet wall. Noah: my inhaler's missing from my nightstand. Lily: found it. Paige put it in the kitchen because the medicine shelf is for Mason's things only now. Noah: the dehumidifier's unplugged. Connor said it's too loud. I drove home with deliberate calm, the kind I summoned when dealing with critical patients. Emotional responses could wait. First, I needed to assess and document. The basement was worse than their texts had conveyed. The beds were indeed pushed against the wall where water damage was worst. I could see fresh moisture beading on the concrete. The dehumidifier sat unplugged in the corner. The window, our only source of natural light, had been blocked by storage boxes labeled Mason's summer clothes. I took photos of everything: the temperature reading, 48 degrees, the humidity level on my portable meter, 73%, the mold creeping up the wall behind Noah's bed. The safety code violations were numerous enough to make any housing inspector weep. Upstairs, the family was gathered for dinner. I walked in, still in my scrubs, and surveyed the scene. Mason in his high chair at the head of the table, Connor and Paige on either side, my parents at the other end. My children's usual seats had been eliminated to make more room. "Lauren, you're late," Gerald said without looking up. "The kids ate sandwiches already." "Where?" I asked. "Downstairs. We're having family time up here." Family time. My children weren't family, apparently. "I need to discuss the basement situation," I said, keeping my voice level. "What situation?" Connor asked, cutting his son's food into perfect tiny squares. "The dehumidifier needs to run constantly for Noah's asthma. The beds can't be against the wet wall. The window needs to remain unblocked. It's a fire safety requirement." Gerald set down his fork with deliberate force. "This is my house. I decide what the requirements are. Building codes decide what the requirements are." I replied, "That basement doesn't meet legal standards for a bedroom. The egress alone." "Then maybe." Gerald stood, his face reddening. "You should find somewhere else to live if you're so concerned about standards." "I am." I said simply, "We're leaving in 3 days." The silence was deafening. My mother's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Connor smirked. Paige looked pleased. "You can't afford your own place," my mother finally said. "I've already signed a lease, Maple Row, Unit 12B. We move in Sunday." Gerald's face went from red to purple. "After everything we've done for you." "What exactly have you done?" I interrupted, my calm finally cracking. "Charged me $800 a month to put my kids in a basement that violates health codes? Made them eat separately like servants? Treated them like intruders in what's supposed to be their grandmother's home? You ungrateful—" Gerald stepped toward me. "Gerald!" Connor's warning was half-hearted at best. "No," I said, pulling out my phone. "Let me be clear. I have documented everything. Every safety violation, every health hazard, the mold, the water damage, the blocked egress. I have photos, videos, temperature logs, humidity readings. I have texts showing you were informed about Noah's medical needs and chose to ignore them. Are you threatening us?" Gerald's voice was low, dangerous. "I'm stating facts. We're leaving Sunday. You will not prevent us from taking our belongings. You will not withhold any of our property or documents. This ends civilly, or it ends with code enforcement and CPS reports." My mother stood, tears in her eyes. "Lauren, please, we're family. Don't make this ugly." "I'm not making anything ugly. Mom, I'm protecting my children from a situation that's become harmful. If you can't see that," I paused, looking at each of them, "then maybe we have different definitions of family." "Get out," Gerald said quietly. "Get your things and get out, tonight." No, I replied. We'll leave Sunday as planned, and if you try to force us out before then, or touch any of our belongings, I'll make those calls tonight. Your choice. I turned and walked downstairs, where Noah and Lily were huddled on Noah's bed, having heard everything. Pack what you absolutely need for 3 nights. I told them quietly. We're staying with Miss Dana until Sunday. Then we're going home, our real home. What about the rest of our stuff? Lily asked. We'll come back for it, with witnesses if necessary. As we packed essentials into garbage bags, a fitting metaphor, I heard the argument erupting upstairs. Connor defending Gerald, Paige complaining about the inconvenience, my mother crying about family unity. Not once did anyone mention concern for 2 children living in unhealthy conditions. That told me everything I needed to know about making the right decision. Dana's apartment was a sanctuary, clean, warm, with windows that actually opened, and not a trace of mold anywhere. My kids slept better that first night than they had in months. Noah breathing easily for once. Saturday morning, I texted my mother. Coming for our belongings at 10 a.m., please have our documents ready. Birth certificates, medical records, school papers. Her response? Your father wants to talk to you. He wasn't my father, but I didn't bother correcting her anymore. We arrived to find Connor's truck blocking the driveway. Deliberate, I was sure. I parked on the street and told the kids to stay in the car. Doors locked. I had my phone recording in my pocket before I reached the front door. The family committee was assembled in the living room like some kind of intervention. Gerald in his recliner. My mother perched anxiously on the sofa. Connor standing by the fireplace like he owned the place. Paige holding Mason with theatrical concern. We've discussed your behavior. Gerald began without preamble. Your threats, your disrespect, the example you're setting for your children. My documents, please, I interrupted, holding out my hand. Listen to him. My mother pleaded. We want to work this out. There's nothing to work out. I need our birth certificates, social security cards, medical records, and school documents. They're in the filing cabinet you moved to the garage. Those items are in my house, Gerald said slowly. Under my roof. You want to play legal games? Prove they're yours. That's when Lily appeared in the doorway. I told her to stay in the car, but my brilliant, brave daughter had other plans. Her phone was in her hand, held casually but deliberately visible. Mom, Noah needs his emergency inhaler, the one from the hospital. It was a lie. Noah had his inhaler, but it shifted the dynamic. Any interference with prescribed medication could be construed as medical neglect. It's in the kitchen, my mother said quickly, shooting Gerald a warning look. I'll get it. I'll come with you, I said, but Connor blocked my path. You're not going anywhere until we settle this. Settle what exactly? I kept my voice steady, aware Lily was likely recording. I'm a tenant who paid rent. I gave notice. I'm collecting my property. If you're refusing to return my children's medical supplies and legal documents, that's theft. You ungrateful bitch, Gerald exploded, rising from his chair. After everything, the roof over your head, the food, that I paid for. I cut in. $800 a month, plus groceries, plus utilities. I have receipts for everything. He moved toward me fast, faster than I expected from a man his age. His hand came up, and I saw it happening in slow motion. The swing, the contact, the sharp crack of his palm across my face. The room erupted. My mother screamed. Connor shouted something. Mason started crying. But Lily, my brilliant, prepared daughter, stood perfectly still, her phone steady, capturing everything. I didn't retaliate, didn't need to. I simply touched my stinging cheek and said, very clearly, you just assaulted me in front of witnesses, in front of my minor child. Gerald's face went white as he realized what he'd done. Connor stepped between us, hands up. Everyone calm down. It was just, he didn't mean... Lily, I said calmly, go back to the car. Call 911 if I'm not out in 5 minutes. She nodded and left. but not before making eye contact with Gerald, making sure he saw her phone. "The documents," I repeated. "Now?" My mother, crying, practically ran to retrieve them. Paige had disappeared with Mason. Connor was trying to talk Gerald down, who stood frozen, perhaps finally understanding the magnitude of his error. "You recorded that," he said flatly. "My daughter's been trained by her school to document unsafe situations. You just created one." My mother returned with a box, all our documents, plus some photo albums I hadn't expected to see again. "Please, Lauren, don't call the police. It was a mistake. He's stressed about—" "About what? Having to treat my children like human beings?" I took the box. "We're done here. If any of you contact me or come near my children, I'll file for a restraining order with that video as evidence." I walked out, steady and calm, until I reached the car where both my children waited. Noah had joined his sister. The moment I was inside, Lily showed me her phone. 2 recordings, one from inside when Gerald hit me, another from outside showing her entering and leaving. Smart girl. "Are you okay, Mom?" Noah asked, seeing my reddened cheek. "I'm perfect," I said, starting the car. "And you know what? So are both of you. That man just gave us exactly what we needed." "Evidence?" Lily asked. "Freedom," I corrected, "with a legal guarantee they can never bother us again." As we drove away, I saw the curtains move, my mother watching us leave. I felt no guilt, only relief. Tomorrow we'd move into Maple Row 12B, but first, we had a stop to make at the Haven Ridge Police Department. The Haven Ridge Police Department was quiet for a Saturday afternoon. Officer Martinez, a woman about my age with kind eyes, took our report in a private room designed for sensitive cases. The fluorescent lights caught the red mark still visible on my cheek. "Your daughter recorded the incident?" she asked, professional but gentle. "Yes, she's been taught in school safety programs to document dangerous situations." Lily handed over her phone, steady and mature beyond her 10 years. The video was crystal clear. Gerald's approach, the slap, his immediate realization of his mistake, but there was more. The second angle from outside had captured audio of the aftermath, including Connor's attempt to minimize and my mother's pleas to not involve police. "There's additional context," I said, pulling out my own phone. 3 weeks of documentation showing unsafe living conditions for my children. Officer Martinez reviewed everything methodically. The photos of the moldy basement, temperature logs, messages about moving Noah's asthma medication, the blocked egress window. Her expression grew increasingly concerned. "Has there been any previous physical violence?" "Not until today, but there's been escalating verbal aggression and deliberate endangerment of my son's health condition." She nodded, typing carefully. "We'll need to contact Child and Family Services for a welfare assessment, given that minors witnessed domestic violence and were subjected to inadequate housing." "We're no longer living there," I clarified. "We move into our own apartment tomorrow." "Good, but we still need to document everything properly." She turned to another form. "You'll want to file for an emergency protective order. With this evidence, it should be granted immediately." The process took 3 hours. Statements, forms, photographs of my face from multiple angles. Noah and Lily waited in the children's area, a colorful room with books and puzzles, a victim advocate keeping them company while ensuring they were okay. By late afternoon, I had a case number, an emergency protective order pending judicial review Monday morning, and an appointment with the district attorney's office. The video evidence is compelling. Officer Martinez said, "The assault charge will likely stick, especially with multiple recordings and a minor witness. The endangerment aspects regarding the living conditions strengthen your case significantly." That evening, back at Dana's, I finally allowed myself to feel the weight of it all. Dana poured me tea while the kids watched a movie in the guest room, their laughter a healing sound. "You did the right thing," she said firmly. "That video is gold." "Lily saved us," I admitted. "I never told her to record anything. She just knew." Smart kid, like her mom. My phone buzzed with messages I didn't read. 17 from my mother, 4 from Connor, nothing from Gerald. His lawyer had probably already told him to cease contact. Sunday morning, we moved into Maple Road 12B. Dana and 2 other colleagues from the hospital helped us transport our meager belongings. The apartment wasn't fancy. Dated appliances, worn carpet, but it was clean, safe, and ours. The bedrooms had actual heating vents. The windows opened, no mold anywhere. "Mom, look," Noah called from his room. "I can see the park from here." Lily was already testing the acoustics, planning where she'd practice trumpet without bothering neighbors. That afternoon, my mother appeared at our door. I spoke to her through the security chain. "You can't be here. There's a protective order." "That's just for Gerald," she said, tears streaming. "Lauren, please, this has gone too far. He's been arrested. They came to the house." "That's a consequence of his actions, not mine." "But family doesn't house children in dangerous conditions. Family doesn't assault people. Family doesn't prioritize one grandchild while endangering others." I kept my voice level. "You chose your side. Mom, you chose it every day for 18 months. I'm still their grandmother." "Then you should have acted like it. Goodbye, Mom." I closed the door, locked it, and installed the extra security chain I'd bought. Monday's emergency hearing was swift. Gerald's lawyer tried to argue the slap was a momentary lapse in judgment during a heated family dispute. The judge, a stern woman named Horvath, watched both videos twice. "Mr. Whitman," she said coldly, "you struck a woman in front of her minor child, in a situation where you were attempting to wrongfully withhold legal documents. The additional evidence of substandard living conditions you provided for minor children, including one with documented asthma, shows a pattern of harmful behavior." The protection order was granted for 12 months. Gerald was ordered to stay 500 feet away from us, our home, the children's school, and my workplace. He was mandated to attend anger management classes and pay a fine. The criminal assault charge would be handled separately, but the DA seemed confident about prosecution given the evidence. Connor and Paige were named as persons of concern in the CPS report, which would remain on file. My mother wasn't restricted legally, but she was warned about third-party contact on Gerald's behalf. "Your Honor," Gerald's lawyer attempted, "the family home. Mr. Whitman will need to make alternative living arrangements for the duration of the order if the protected party's mother chooses to maintain contact with them." Judge Horvath ruled. "The safety of children takes precedence over convenience." The courtroom was packed for the formal hearing 3 weeks later. Gerald sat at the defendant's table. His usual arrogance replaced by something smaller, diminished. His lawyer, a tired-looking man in an ill-fitting suit, shuffled papers nervously. Connor and Paige were in the gallery, along with my mother who wouldn't meet my eyes. On our side sat Dana, several colleagues from the hospital, and surprisingly, Mr. Duffy, the neighbor from my mother's street who'd approached me before the hearing. "I have doorbell camera footage," he'd said quietly. "From that Saturday. The angles show your arrival and the altercation through the window. I should have said something sooner about how they were treating you and your kids." The prosecutor, ADA, Jennifer Chen, was thorough and methodical. She presented the evidence in devastating sequence. First, the documentation of living conditions, photos of the basement, temperature logs, humidity readings, the mold growth, the blocked egress window. "Your Honor," she said, "these conditions violate multiple housing codes. For a child with asthma, they constitute medical endangerment." Gerald's lawyer tried to argue it was temporary accommodation and that I'd agreed to it. Then came the messages, screenshots of texts about Noah's medication being moved, about the dehumidifier being unplugged, about my children being told to eat in the basement. "A pattern of systematic marginalization," the prosecutor stated. But the videos were the crescendo. First, Lily's recording. The slap rang out in the silent courtroom, sharp and undeniable, Gerald's face on the screen, twisted in anger. Then sudden recognition of his mistake. The audio caught everything. His verbal abuse, calling me an ungrateful bitch, the threats about withholding documents. Then came Mr. Duffy's doorbell footage, a wider angle showing me walking calmly to the house, Lily following despite instructions to stay in the car. The timestamp proved I'd been there less than 10 minutes before the assault occurred. The defendant struck Miss Hale not in the heat of a prolonged argument, the prosecutor emphasized, but within minutes of her arrival to collect her legal documents. When Lily took the stand, she was composed and clear. The judge asked her gentle questions about what she saw, what she felt, why she recorded. My health teacher, Miss Coleman, taught us about documenting unsafe situations. Lily said simply, she said evidence protects people. I wanted to protect my mom. Were you scared? Yes, but more angry. They were always mean to her, to us, making Noah sleep in that wet basement when he couldn't breathe right. I knew someday I'd need proof. The judge turned to Gerald. Mr. Whitman, do you have anything to say? Gerald stood slowly. His prepared statement was predictable. Stress, misunderstanding, family tensions. But then he veered off script. She was ungrateful, he said, his old anger flickering. We gave her a place to stay, and she complained constantly, always wanting special treatment for her kids. His lawyer grabbed his arm, but the damage was done. He'd just confirmed the mindset behind his actions. Judge Horvath's ruling was swift and severe. Mr. Whitman, the evidence shows a clear pattern of escalating hostile behavior culminating in physical assault. The living conditions you provided for minor children were not just substandard but dangerous. Your lack of remorse and continued justification for your actions demonstrates an ongoing threat. The protection order was extended to 3 years. Gerald was convicted of misdemeanor assault and battery, sentenced to 18 months probation, 200 hours of community service, and mandatory completion of a 52-week anger management program. He was ordered to pay $5,000 in fines plus court costs. Furthermore, the judge continued, given the evidence of child endangerment through environmental neglect, CPS will maintain an open file. Any future contact with minor children must be supervised. But the judge wasn't finished. She turned to my mother and Connor, who weren't defendants but had been called as witnesses. While you're not facing charges, I want to be clear. Enabling abuse through willful blindness is its own form of harm. Mrs. Hale, your daughter and grandchildren were living in conditions you knew were inadequate. Mr. Hale, you actively participated in creating those conditions. This court hopes you'll reflect on your choices. The gavel came down. It was over. Outside the courthouse, my mother approached, Connor trailing behind. Lauren, wait. No, I said firmly. The court has spoken. Gerald can't come near us. If you want him in your life, then you've made your choice. But the holidays, family gatherings, we're making new traditions, I said, taking my children's hands. Ones where they matter. Connor finally spoke. This is ridiculous. Over one slap? You've destroyed our family. No, I said, looking him directly in the eye. You destroyed it when you decided my children were worth less than yours. The slap just exposed what was already broken. We walked away, toward Dana's car, toward our new life, behind us. I heard my mother crying, Connor consoling her, their voices fading as the distance grew. Mom? Noah asked as we reached the car. Are you okay? I looked at my son, breathing freely, standing tall, no longer apologizing for existing. I'm better than okay, I said. We all are. The October air was crisp as I turned the key to Maple Row 12B for the last time as a renter. After 6 months, we were moving again, but this time it was different. The approval letter for my mortgage was tucked in my purse, a modest 3-bedroom house on Elm Street, with a real backyard and windows in every room that actually opened. Mom! The moving truck's here, Lily called from her room, where she was carefully packing her trumpet and music sheets. She'd made first chair in the school band. No more silent practicing. Noah bounded down the stairs, breathing easy. His asthma had virtually disappeared once we left that damp basement. His confidence had returned too. He'd even won an art contest at school with a painting titled New Beginnings. The doorbell rang. Not the moving crew, but Dana with coffee and donuts. Behind her stood Mr. Duffy, the neighbor whose camera footage had helped seal our case. "Thought you could use some caffeine and sugar for moving day," Dana said, hugging me tight. "You didn't have to—" "Family helps family, mister," Duffy interrupted with a knowing smile. "The real kind of family." As we loaded boxes, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. But something made me answer. "Lauren, it's Mom." I stayed silent. "I wanted you to know Gerald moved out, permanently. The divorce papers were filed yesterday." I sat down on the porch steps. "Mom?" "I chose wrong," she said, her voice breaking. "For 2 years, I watched him mistreat you. Watched Connor and Paige act like I was so afraid of losing them, of Mason, that I lost you instead. I lost my grandchildren." "What about Connor?" "He and Paige bought a house near her parents. They don't visit much since Gerald's conviction became public. Apparently, it's embarrassing for them at their country club." The irony wasn't lost on me. They'd gotten what they wanted, the house to themselves, but lost everything that mattered in the process. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," she continued. "I know I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know that I finally see it, what we did, what I let happen." "I appreciate you calling," I said carefully. "Maybe someday, when the kids are ready, we can talk about supervised visits, but that's their choice to make." "I understand, Lauren. That video Lily took, it saved more than just your case. It opened my eyes to what I'd become, what I'd allowed." After we hung up, I found my children in the backyard of our new home, already planning where to put a basketball hoop. The house wasn't fancy. It needed paint. The kitchen was dated. The carpets would need replacing eventually, but it was ours. No one could tell us where to sleep, when to be quiet, or that we mattered less than anyone else. "Kids," I called. "Family meeting." They gathered on the porch, and I told them about their grandmother's call. They exchanged glances, communicating in that twin language they'd developed. "Maybe at Christmas," Noah said finally. "Just lunch somewhere public." "With witnesses," Lily added, then grinned. "And I'm bringing my phone." That night, after pizza in our new kitchen and unpacking the essentials, I tucked them into their own rooms with proper heating, windows that opened, and no trace of mold. As I was heading to my own room, Lily called out, "Mom?" "Yeah, sweetheart?" "We did it, didn't we? We won." I thought about Gerald's conviction, the protection order, the CPS file that would follow him forever. I thought about my mother's tearful phone call, Connor's humiliation, their perfect family image shattered by a 10-year-old with a cell phone. But mostly, I thought about my children, healthy, safe, valued, and free. "Yeah, baby," I said. "We absolutely won." The beauty of justice isn't in revenge, it's in the simple act of standing up and saying no more. Sometimes the greatest victory is just walking away, evidence in hand, and building something better from the ashes of what you left behind. And sometimes, a 10-year-old with a phone and a fierce love for her mother can bring down an entire house of cards with the press of a record button. They thought we were weak. They forgot that in America, the truth, properly documented, is the strongest weapon of all. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I'm curious, where are you listening from? Please leave a comment below and let me know what country or city you're in. I love connecting with people from all over the world who understand what it's like to stand up for yourself and your children. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And please share your thoughts. Have you ever had to document a situation to protect yourself or your family? Your stories matter too.